She said I'd never amount to anything. Walked out on me and our kids for a venture capitalist with a mansion. 7 years later, she's standing in my office, broke and desperate, begging for a job. I smiled and said words that changed everything. You already did. My name is Derek Lawson. I'm 43 years old, and 7 years ago my wife destroyed our family for what she called a real future. Back then, I was a hospital IT director in Sacramento, pulling decent money, but dreaming bigger. I'd spent 2 years building an AI application for managing chronic diseases, working nights in our garage, something that could actually help people. Bethany used to say she believed in it. Turned out she believed in Randall Pierce more. The day she asked for divorce, we sat in our kitchen. Owen was 7, playing with cars in the living room. Sophie was 11, doing homework upstairs. Bethany had that professional look, like she was about to fire an employee. I need to focus on my career, Derek, she said, fingers wrapped around a coffee mug she wasn't drinking. I can't do this anymore. We're in different places. 14 years of marriage, and this was how it ended. Different places? I said, Beth, we have 2 kids. A home. What are you talking about? She set the mug down with a click. I've met someone. Randall's a partner at a venture capital firm. He understands my ambitions. He sees potential in me that you never did. I've supported every job change, every late night, I said. What about Sophie and Owen? Children are resilient, she said, looking at the window instead of me. They'll understand someday. That's when I knew she'd already left us in her mind. Her lawyer was brutal. She wanted the house, our savings including what I'd set aside for my startup, and primary custody. Her argument? I was too focused on unrealistic ventures to be stable. The judge split it down the middle. She got the house and 70% of our savings. I got an apartment in a cheaper part of town and every other weekend, plus Wednesday dinners. Bethany moved in with Randall 3 months later. Big house, pool, 3-car garage. Everything I supposedly couldn't provide. I'll never forget explaining it to Sophie. She sat on her bed, hugging a pillow, crying. Why doesn't Mom want to live with us anymore? She asked. Your mom needs to follow her path right now, sweetheart. I said, the words hollow. But I'm here. I'm always going to be here. Owen was too young to fully understand. He just knew Mom lived somewhere else now with a man who wasn't his father. A man who smiled at Bethany's work events, but barely looked at my kids. That first night alone in my new apartment, I sat on a folding chair in an empty living room. No furniture, no pictures, just me, a sleeping bag, and a laptop with 7 years of work on it. Work Bethany called unrealistic. I opened the laptop and looked at the code, the patient management algorithms. It wasn't much, but unlike my marriage, it was something I could still save. If Bethany needed to focus on her career, then I'd focus on mine. Not for revenge, not for spite, but because she'd taken almost everything else, and I'd be damned if I let her take my dream too. The apartment was a joke. 800 square feet in a neighborhood where car alarms were the primary sound at night. The walls were thin enough that I could hear my neighbor's TV through the drywall. But it was what I could afford after Bethany's lawyer finished carving up our assets. I furnished it with whatever I could find cheap. A mattress on the floor, a folding table that served as both desk and dining room, 2 plastic chairs from a discount store. Sophie cried the first time she saw it. This is where we're staying? She asked, looking around the bare living room. It's temporary, sweetheart. I told her, though I had no idea how long temporary would be. We'll make it work. Owen just shrugged and started unpacking his backpack. Kids adapt, just like Bethany said. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt them. The real problem came when I opened my bank account on Monday morning. After the divorce settlement, after first and last month's rent, after buying the basics to survive, I had $3,200 left. The startup fund I'd been building for 3 years was gone, absorbed into Bethany's share of assets. I sat at my folding table, laptop open, staring at that number. $3,200 to build a medical AI platform that could compete with companies backed by millions. It was insane. My phone rang. Work. My boss at the hospital, asking if I could come in early to handle a server migration. Sure, I said. I'll be there in 30. That's how it started. Working my regular job 45 hours a week, then coming home to code until 2 in the morning. Weekends I had the kids. I'd work while they did homework or watch TV. Weekends I didn't. I'd put in 16-hour days. 3 months in, I got my first reality check. I was presenting my app concept to a potential angel investor, a guy I'd met through a hospital connection. His office was downtown, all glass and steel. I showed up in my best shirt, which had a small stain I tried to hide with a tie. The pitch lasted 12 minutes. He interrupted me halfway through. "Derek, I'm going to be honest," he said. "The concept is interesting, but you're at least 2 years from a viable product. Maybe 3. You're doing this alone." "Right now, yes," I said. He leaned back in his chair. "Healthcare AI is expensive. You need data partnerships, clinical trials, FDA considerations. You're looking at minimum $500,000 to get a market, probably closer to $1 million. You have funding." "I'm bootstrapping it," I said. He smiled, but it wasn't encouraging. "Good luck with that. If you get traction, call me. But right now, you're too early stage." I walked out of that office feeling like an idiot. Bethany's voice echoed in my head. Unrealistic ventures. Maybe she was right. That night, I almost quit. Almost shut the laptop and accepted that some dreams are too big for one person. But then I thought about Sophie's question. Why does a mom want to live with us? Because she wanted more. Because she thought I couldn't give it to her. I opened the laptop and kept coding. If I was going to fail, at least I'd fail trying. 6 months into my new life, everything fell apart at once. It started with a phone call from Sophie's school. She'd been in a fight, something about another kid saying her dad was poor. The principal wanted a meeting. I took time off work I couldn't afford to lose. Then my car died. The transmission went out on my 10-year-old sedan, and the repair estimate was $20 to $100. I didn't have it. Started taking the bus to work, adding 90 minutes to my commute each way. But the real nightmare came on a Wednesday night when I picked up the kids. Owen looked pale, kept coughing. By midnight, his fever hit 103. I drove him urgent care in my neighbor's car, praying it wasn't serious. The doctor said it was pneumonia. Not severe, but he needed antibiotics and rest. The bill was $800 after insurance. I put it on a credit card that was already maxed. "Dad, I'm sorry," Owen said in the car, his voice small and tired. "For what, buddy?" "For getting sick. I heard you on the phone. I know we don't have money." Something broke inside me hearing that. My 7-year-old son apologizing for being sick because we were broke. "Owen, you never apologize for that," I said, my voice harder than I meant it. "Never. You understand me? This isn't your fault." He nodded, but I could see he didn't believe me. That night, after I got Owen settled with medication, I sat at my folding table staring at my bank account. $14. My next paycheck was 5 days away, and I needed to buy groceries. I thought about calling my parents, but they'd already helped with the security deposit. Thought about asking my brother, but he had his own family to support. There was no one left. My phone buzzed. Email notification. Another rejection from an investor I'd pitched 2 weeks ago. Not the right fit for our portfolio at this time. I closed my laptop and put my head in my hands. Bethany was right. I was chasing something unrealistic while my kids suffered for it. Owen was apologizing for being sick. Sophie was fighting at school. And I was sitting here with $14 pretending I could build a medical AI company. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Derek Lawson," a gravelly voice said. "Speaking. This is Walter Griffin. I worked with you at County General about 8 years ago. You probably don't remember me." I searched my memory. Walter Griffin. Old school systems engineer. Must have been in his 60s back then. Brilliant, but semi-retired. "I remember," I said. "You taught me half of what I know about database architecture." He chuckled. "I heard through the grapevine, you're building something. Healthcare AI for chronic disease management." "That true?" "Was true," I said. "Right now, I'm mostly trying to keep my kids fed." "Don't give up yet," Walter said. "I'd like to see what you've built. You free this weekend?" Walter Griffin's house was in the suburbs, the kind of neighborhood I used to live in. Nice lawn, 2-car garage, probably worth $500,000. I pulled up in my neighbor's borrowed car, laptop bag over my shoulder, feeling completely out of place. He answered the door in jeans and a flannel shirt, looking older than I remembered but sharp-eyed. "Come in," Walter said. "Coffee?" "Please." His office was impressive. 3 monitors, server rack humming in the corner, walls covered with certifications and photos from 40 years in tech. This was a man who'd built real things. I showed him my application. The patient interface, the AI algorithm that tracked symptoms and medication adherence, the predictive analytics that could flag complications before they became emergencies. He asked technical questions I could actually answer, probed the architecture, tested edge cases. 2 hours later, he leaned back in his chair. "You built this alone?" Walter asked. "Mostly. Borrowed some open-source frameworks, but the core algorithm is mine." "It's rough," he said. "The UI needs work. Security protocols need hardening. But the foundation is solid, Derek. Really solid." I felt something I hadn't felt in months. "Hope. I can't pay you," I said. "I know you'd be worth 6 figures anywhere, but—" Walter held up his hand. "I'm 69 years old. Retired last year. My wife died 3 years ago. Kids are grown and gone. Know what I do most days? Watch game shows and argue with strangers on tech forums. I'm bored out of my mind." He stood up, walked to the window. "I heard what happened with your divorce. Heard your wife cleaned you out and left you with nothing. That true? More or less." "Then here's my offer," Walter said. "I'll help you build this thing. Part-time, maybe 20 hours a week. I don't need money. I need a reason to get up in the morning. But I have 2 conditions." "Name them." "First, you listen to my advice. I've been doing this since before you were born. Second, you don't quit. I don't care how hard it gets. You see this through." I stood up and offered my hand. "Deal." Walter shook it, his grip still strong. "Good. Now let's talk about what we're really building here. This isn't just an app, Derek. This is a platform. If we do this right, we can license it to hospital systems, insurance companies, research institutions. But it'll take 2 years minimum. Maybe 3. You ready for that?" I thought about Owen apologizing for being sick, about Sophie fighting at school, about Bethany's face when she said I was chasing unrealistic dreams. "I'm ready," I said. "Then let's get to work." With Walter's help, everything changed. Not overnight, but steadily. He'd come to my apartment 3 evenings a week, bringing takeout and diving into code. The man was 70 but could outwork developers half his age. "Your authentication system is garbage," Walter said one night, fingers flying across his keyboard. "Hospital data needs military-grade encryption. Let me rebuild it." Within 2 months, we had a functional beta. Walter connected me with a small clinic in Oakland willing to test it. 20 patients with diabetes, tracking their glucose levels and medication through our app. The results were remarkable. Patients reported better adherence, fewer missed doses. The clinic administrator called it transformative. But success brought new problems. I was working my hospital job 40 hours, coding 40 more, and trying to be present for Sophie and Owen every other weekend. Something had to give. One Wednesday night, I picked up the kids for dinner. Sophie was quiet, picking at her food. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked. She looked up, eyes wet. "Mom says you're going to move away, that your job is taking you somewhere else." My jaw tightened. "I'm not going anywhere." Where did she hear that? "She told Randall that you're probably going to fail and have to move back with Grandma in Oregon." I took a breath, pushed down the anger. "Sophie, listen to me. I'm not failing, and I'm not leaving. Your mom is wrong. She said you're chasing fantasies," Sophie said quietly. "That you'll never be successful like Randall." Owen looked scared, like he might cry. "Let me tell you something," I said, leaning forward. "Success isn't about how much money you make or what car you drive. It's about keeping promises and working hard for what matters. I promise you both, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm going to show your mom exactly how wrong she is." That conversation lit a fire in me. 2 weeks later, Walter and I landed our first real contract. A hospital network in Nevada wanted to pilot our platform with 200 patients. The contract was worth $75,000 over 6 months. When I signed the papers, my hand shook. Not from fear, from vindication. "This is just the beginning," Walter said. "But Derek, you need to quit your day job. You can't build a company working nights and weekends." "I have rent, child support bills," I said. "I can't afford to quit." "You can't afford not to," he replied. "This contract is enough to live on for 6 months. Barely, but enough. Take the leap, or stay small forever." He was right. I gave notice at the hospital the next day. My boss thought I was insane. Maybe I was. But for the first time since Bethany left, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just surviving. Sophie asked me that weekend if I was scared about quitting my job. Terrified, I told her honestly. But sometimes you have to be brave, even when you're scared. She hugged me tight. "I think you're brave, Dad." That made every sleepless night worth it. The Nevada hospital contract was brutal. 200 patients meant 200 different needs, problems, complaints. I worked 16-hour days. Walter worked 10. We hired a junior developer on contract, barely affordable, but necessary. For months in, we had our first crisis. The app crashed during a critical data sync, wiping out 3 days of patient entries. The hospital administrator called me at midnight, furious. "This is unacceptable, Derek," she said. "We trusted you with patient data. If this happens again, we're done." Walter and I pulled 2 all-nighters, rebuilt the sync system, added redundancies. It never crashed again, but the stress was destroying me. I lost 15 pounds I didn't have to lose. Dark circles under my eyes became permanent. Sophie noticed. "Dad, you look sick," she said during our Wednesday dinner. "Just tired, sweetheart." "I'm okay." I wasn't okay, but I couldn't stop now. Then something unexpected happened. A medical conference in San Francisco invited me to present our platform. Small audience, maybe 60 people, but they were decision-makers from hospital systems across the West Coast. I stood on that stage in a suit I bought at a thrift store, showed our results, explained how our AI reduced hospital readmissions by 18% in the Nevada trial. After my presentation, 3 people approached with business cards. Real interest. Real opportunities. One was from a hospital CEO in Portland who wanted to discuss a much larger contract. On the flight home, I looked at those business cards and realized something. I was actually doing it. Building something real. Something that mattered. The Nevada contract ended successfully. The hospital administrator called it the most effective patient management tool we've implemented in 10 years. They signed an extension worth $120,000. Walter and I celebrated with cheap whiskey in my apartment. "You did it," he said, raising his glass. "You took a dream and made it real." "We did it," I corrected. But the best moment came 2 weeks later. Sophie's school was having career day. She asked if I could come talk about my job. I showed up in jeans and a button-down. No fancy suit. No corporate polish. I told her class about building software that helps sick people stay healthy. About working hard when things get difficult. About not giving up on dreams, even when people tell you they're impossible. After class, Sophie's teacher pulled me aside. "Your daughter talks about you constantly," she said. "She tells everyone her dad is changing healthcare. I just wanted you to know how proud she is." I drove home that day with tears in my eyes. Not from sadness. From knowing that whatever else happened, my kids saw me fighting. They saw me refuse to quit. And that mattered more than any contract ever could. 7 years after Bethany walked out, my company had 15 hospital contracts across 6 states. We'd raised our first real funding round, $800,000 from a healthcare venture firm. I'd moved into an actual office, hired a team of 8 developers, and finally bought a house where Sophie and Owen had their own rooms. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was living the dream Bethany said was unrealistic. Then one Tuesday morning, my receptionist buzzed my office. "Derek, there's a woman here to see you. She says her name is Bethany Lawson. Should I send her away?" My stomach dropped. "No, send her in." She walked through my door, looking smaller than I remembered. Older. Tired. The confidence she'd worn like armor 7 years ago was gone, replaced by something desperate. "Derek," Bethany said, her voice uncertain. "Thank you for seeing me." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Didn't stand. Didn't smile. "What do you want, Beth?" She sat down, hands clasped in her lap. "I heard about your success. The company, the funding. I wanted to say congratulations. You could have sent an email. I wanted to see you in person," she said. "To talk about everything that happened. To apologize." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. "Where's Randall?" Her face tightened. "We're not together anymore. Haven't been for 2 years." "What happened?" "He was running a Ponzi scheme," Bethany said quietly. "Investment fraud. The FBI arrested him 18 months ago. He's serving 8 years in federal prison. Everything he had was seized, including the house. Including money he'd put in my name. I have debts, Derek. Almost $200,000 in legal fees and restitution. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt nothing. "I'm sorry that happened to you," I said. "But I'm not sure why you're here." Bethany looked up, and I saw tears in her eyes. "I made a mistake. Leaving you. Leaving our family. I thought Randall offered more, but he was a fraud. You were real. You were always real. 7 years too late for that conversation." "I know," she said. But I'm broke and desperate, Derek. I've been job hunting for months. My reputation is destroyed because of Randall. No one will hire me. I saw that you're hiring for a strategic operations role. I thought maybe. Maybe what? I interrupted. Maybe I give you a job? She nodded, hope flickering in her eyes. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm good at what I do. I could help your company. And I need this, Derek. I'm 2 months behind on rent. I can't even afford to buy Sophie and Owen decent Christmas presents. I stood up, walked to the window. Below, the parking lot held my Tesla and 15 other cars belonging to my employees. People who'd believe in this dream when Bethany called it unrealistic. You remember what you said 7 years ago? I asked, not turning around. You said you needed to focus on your career, so I focused on mine. 7 years later, you show up broke and desperate. Can I get a job? I turned to face her, smiled without warmth. You already did. Her face showed confusion. What? You've been on my hiring list for 6 months, Beth. I knew you'd come eventually. The job is yours. Entry-level operations. $35,000 a year. You start Monday. Bethany's first day. I had her desk placed in the main bullpen. No office, no privacy. Right where everyone could see her. She sat between 2 junior developers, both younger than her, both earning more. Her first assignment was data entry. Updating client contact information, organizing files, scheduling meetings. Work an intern could do. She did it without complaint, at least at first. Walter pulled me aside after her first week. You're playing a dangerous game, he said. I'm giving her a job. That's what she asked for. You're humiliating her, Walter said. I understand the anger, Derek. But this feels like revenge. It's not revenge, I said. It's consequences. She destroyed our family for ambition. Now she gets to see what real ambition built while she starts from the bottom. But Walter's word stayed with me. Was I being cruel? Or was I just holding her accountable? 3 weeks in, Bethany requested a meeting. She came to my office after hours, when most staff had left. Derek, I need to talk about my role, she said, sitting across from me. Problem with the work? The work is fine. It's just, I have 15 years of marketing and strategy experience. I thought maybe I could contribute more than data entry. You will, I said, when you've proven yourself. Everyone here started somewhere, Beth. Some of us started with nothing. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. Fair enough. The real test came a month later. I was presenting to a major hospital network, pitching a $1 million contract. My biggest deal yet. The presentation was in Sacramento, and I needed someone to coordinate logistics, prepare materials, handle the details. I assigned it to Bethany. She worked 70 hours that week, printed materials, booked conference rooms, arranged catering. The presentation went flawlessly. We won the contract. Afterward, the hospital CEO mentioned how impressed he was with our organization. Your operations coordinator really had everything dialed in, he said. I found Bethany in the office that evening, packing up. You did good work, I said. She looked up surprised. Thank you. I mean it. That contract wouldn't have happened without your coordination. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. Derek, can I ask you something? Why did you hire me? Really? I considered lying, but decided on truth. Because our kids needed to see that I'm not cruel. That even after everything, I could show you grace. But also because you needed to understand what you walked away from. Not the money, not the success, the work, the sacrifice, the years of building something real while you chase status. I understand now, she said quietly. I see what you built. What we could have built together if I hadn't been so blind. Yeah, I said. You do. I left her there, alone in the office, sitting with that realization. Not out of cruelty, but because some lessons you have to learn in silence, with no one to blame but yourself. Sophie asked me that weekend why her mom was working for me. We were at the park, Owen playing on the swings. Because she needed help and I could provide it, I told her. Are you guys getting back together? Sophie asked, a mix of hope and fear in her voice. No, sweetheart. That's not going to happen. But your mom is part of your life, and I want her to be okay. Not for me. For you and Owen. Sophie hugged me. You're a good dad. That meant more than any contract ever could. For months after Bethany started working for me, I got a call from Sophie's school. She'd been absent 3 days that week. When I called Bethany to ask why, she was evasive. She had a cold. Nothing serious. 3 days for a cold. She's fine, Derek. Stop micromanaging. Something felt wrong. I drove to Bethany's apartment unannounced that evening. The building was in a rough part of Sacramento. The hallway smelled like mold and cigarettes. When Bethany opened the door, I saw inside. Nearly empty. A couch, a small TV, barely any furniture. "Where's Sophie?" I asked. "At a friend's house." "Don't lie to me. Where is she?" Bethany's face collapsed. "She's in her room." "Derek, I'm doing my best. The salary you're paying me barely covers rent and food. I can't afford anything extra." I pushed past her into the apartment. Found Sophie in a tiny bedroom, lying on a mattress on the floor. No bed frame. Homework scattered around her. She looked up, saw me, and started crying. "Dad, I didn't want you to know." I knelt beside her. "Know what, sweetheart? That mom can't afford anything. That we don't have food sometimes. That I'm embarrassed to have friends over." My chest tightened with rage. I stood up, walked back to the living room where Bethany stood with her arms wrapped around herself. "You've been neglecting them," I said, my voice low and controlled. "I haven't," Bethany protested. "I'm trying, Derek. But $35,000 a year isn't enough for 2 kids. You know that. Then you should have thought about that before you threw away our family for a con man. I'm taking Sophie home tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to court to modify the custody arrangement." "You can't do that," Bethany said. "Watch me." I called my lawyer that night. Within a week, we filed an emergency custody motion. The evidence was overwhelming. Bethany's financial instability, Sophie's missed school days, Owen's statement to a court-appointed counselor that he was always hungry at Mom's house. The hearing was brutal. Bethany's lawyer tried to argue that I was using my wealth to manipulate the system. My lawyer presented bank statements showing Bethany had spent money on clothes and restaurants instead of groceries for the kids. Presented photos of her apartment. Presented testimony from Sophie's teacher about her declining attendance. The judge took 15 minutes to decide. Primary custody is awarded to the father, Derek Lawson. Mother will have supervised visitation every other Sunday until she can demonstrate stable housing and financial responsibility. Bethany broke down, crying in the courtroom. Part of me felt sorry for her, but a larger part felt justice finally being served. That night, Sophie and Owen moved into my house permanently. Sophie hugged me, so tight I could barely breathe. "We get to stay with you forever?" she asked. "Forever," I said. "I'm never letting you go again." Owen was quieter, but at dinner he said something that broke my heart. "Dad, does this mean we'll have food every day?" "Every single day, buddy. I promise." Walter stopped by later that week, brought pizza for the kids. "You did the right thing," he said. "Those kids needed stability." "I should have fought for custody years ago," I said. "You weren't in a position to win years ago. You are now. That's what matters." A year later, everything had changed. My company secured a major partnership with a national healthcare network, a 3-year contract worth $12 million. We expanded to 30 employees, opened a second office in Seattle. I was being interviewed by tech magazines, speaking at conferences, living a life I'd barely imagined 7 years ago. Sophie was thriving. Straight A's, made the volleyball team, had friends over constantly. Owen joined a robotics club at school and talked endlessly about becoming an engineer. Watching them heal from those years of instability was the greatest success I'd ever achieved. Bethany continued working for me, but our relationship stayed strictly professional. She'd moved to a better apartment, was paying down her debts slowly. She saw the kids every other Sunday at a park, supervised visits that gradually became less awkward. One afternoon, she asked to meet me after work. We sat in my office, the same place she'd come begging for a job a year earlier. "I'm giving my notice," Bethany said. "Why?" "I got an offer from a marketing firm in Portland. Better salary, fresh start. And Derek, I think it's better for everyone if I'm not here. Working for you, seeing what you built without me, it's a daily reminder of my failures." "What about Sophie and Owen?" "I'll visit once a month. Video calls in between. They're better off with you as their primary parent. We both know that." I nodded slowly. "If that's what you want." "It's not about what I want anymore," she said. "It's about what's right. You were always the better parent. The better person. I'm sorry it took me 7 years and losing everything to see that. I hope Portland works out for you," I said, and meant it. She left 2 weeks later. The kids were sad but understood. They had stability now, something they'd lacked for years. Walter retired from active development but stayed on as an advisor. We celebrated at a steakhouse, Just him and me. You did it, Walter said, raising his glass. Built something from nothing. Proved everyone wrong. We did it, I corrected. I wouldn't be here without you. Maybe, he said. But you had the fire, Derek. I just helped you aim it. 3 years after that, Sophie graduated high school, valedictorian of her class. In her speech, she talked about resilience, about watching her father refuse to quit when everything fell apart. My dad taught me that success isn't about never falling down, Sophie said to the crowd. It's about getting back up every single time. About working harder when people say you can't. About building something real, even when everyone tells you it's impossible. I sat in that audience with Owen beside me, now 14 and already taller than me, tears streaming down my face. After the ceremony, Sophie found me in the crowd. Did I embarrass you? She asked. You made me prouder than I've ever been, I said. That night, sitting on my back porch, I thought about that day in the cafe 7 years ago. When Bethany said she needed to focus on her career. When I'd walked away feeling like I'd lost everything. I'd lost a marriage that was already broken. But I'd found something better. Purpose. Dignity. The knowledge that I'd built something that mattered. Not for revenge, but because it was in me all along. Sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. It's just becoming the person you were meant to be and letting that speak for itself.